Alright lads, I finally did it. We're finally full Linux on my desktop computer over here. Uh, I'm just going to talk about my experience using it and whatnot after about a week and change. So I have right here my laptop. This is the old laptop I've had since I was in middle school. It's just old HP laptop that's been with me for a long time. It's gone through a number of Linux distributions over the years. But we're currently on Ubuntu Mate. This is the one I've kind of stuck with for the longest time because after like a brief period of time, I was distro hopping like crazy, and I tried like almost all of the major uh, distribution, like the big name distributions, I guess. Um, well, for the most part, I ended up just settling like fuck it, dude. I'm going back to Ubuntu, and then I just stuck with it for a long time. And this has been on here since maybe I know for Ubuntu 18, whenever that was, or maybe a little bit earlier. But I've been using Ubuntu since either 14 or 16 days. Uh, but that's I guess that's kind of besides the point. So this has been here for a long time. This has been my almost daily computer. I have a lot of anime on here. Well, I did have a lot of anime on here. Well, I mean, it's only 500 gigabyte hard drive, but I had some stuff here. Currently rocking the Windows XP theme on here. Um, but like this is where I did a lot of stuff, and I got really comfortable using Linux on this machine. Um, but eventually I started to move more towards my desktop usage. But my desktops have always traditionally been, geez, I don't know, that weird stutter. They've always traditionally been Windows systems, um, because I always tell myself that I'm going to use games, right? I'm going to play games on here, but most of the time I'm just playing games on my Switch or my PS3 or my DS or something. I don't play that many PC games, so I'm just like, okay, finally time to take the plunge. With In light of the Windows 11 reveal, I'm like, screw that, dude. Like, I'm already like kind of on the fence about Windows 10, just barely hanging on, and with Windows 11, it's like, nah, this is where I drop off. So I'm going full Linux here for the most part. I'm still dual booting because there's some programs I still use on the other one, which is gonna become a pain in the ass because earlier today I was trying to get into Premiere Pro to do some editing, and it just didn't work. It doesn't work anymore. I don't know what it is. Though I do have a theory. I think it has to do with permissions on the hard drive. Because I didn't have this problem before dual booting, and after dual booting, I now suddenly have this issue where Premiere will boot, but it won't open a project. I tried a number of versions. I even have a legal copy of it from my uni, uh, and then I even tried a cracked version, and none of them worked. And I went back a few versions, and nothing really happened. So I would assume like the only thing I can try is perhaps trying to boot it off a different drive, like installing it to one of my other hard drives, or potentially I have a spare SSD around here. What I can do is see if I can clone my Windows install onto that SSD, put that SSD in, and try to install Premiere on there, which could potentially work. Uh, Otherwise, I might have to use a different editor. But it was a huge pain in the ass, and a major headache. But I digress. So right now we're in Linux. We're here, lads. I got my Tux sticker just kind of hanging out here. Um, I'm currently using Debian, the latest version, which is Bullseye. Bullseye technically isn't going to be released until mid-August, I think the 14th, but it's frozen at the current moment, meaning that all the packages and whatnot are essentially um, almost finalized. They're into finalizing phase, so it's essentially uh, done for the most part. So I mean, it's almost it's like basically stable. So the reason I chose Debian was because um, like I didn't want to deal with bullshit because like I've messed around with other distros, and I've obviously had some experience with Arch-based distros, which by all means are probably the better choice. Like I've encountered some minor to major headaches with dealing with Debian that would likely not even be an issue with Arch, but Arch brings along its own fair share of issues in like Arch-based distros, um, which I think I'm overblowing in my mind the whole breakage thing, but um, it was something that I didn't really want to deal with, and like I just went into this like, all right, I want to try with stability, see what happens. If I got fed up with it, which I might eventually, you could always jump ship to something else because I have my home partition, home. I have home on a different partition is what I mean to say. So I chose Debian. Debian's pretty based. It's stable, but and that's also a different way of saying packages are outdated. But not necessarily, though you will deal with some problems with that, which I've come to realize. Uh, a lot of which was when I was, because I initially installed this on Buster, which was Debian 10, and a lot of the packages were really old. And the problem with Debian is that it's aimed for primarily being used in, I guess, for people who value stability over practicality, I guess. And another problem with Debian is their ISOs, that like you can never find the correct non-free ISO because they only give you um, the like the fully Libre one, which almost nobody has a fully Libre system. You're gonna need the non-free packages. Um, I mean, of course, there are probably ideal systems for that, but most people are gonna need the non-free one. So you're gonna go and look for that. But after it was all said and done, the install went smoothly, uh, and very quickly as well. Got everything configured. The major first problem I had was dealing with Firefox. I am currently using a different. Hold on, because it comes pre-shipped with Firefox ESR or extended release, but I'm not using that. I'm using a different version, and I had to uh, download Firefox from Mozilla's website, uh, drop it into applications folder, and like get everything configured, make shortcuts and everything to my liking. And it was kind of like the first hurdle to jump through, which you wouldn't have to deal with on another system, because Firefox ESR or extended release, extended support release, is the only Firefox as far as I'm concerned, or as far as I'm aware of, I should say, within Debian's main repository, unless you, of course, you're on unstable/sid, which if you go to there, there's not really a reason to continue using Debian if you're on unstable. Um, so like I mean, but it's your prerogative. You can do whatever you want. So that was the first hurdle I had to jump through, and then the second hurdle I had to jump through was working with Steam. And when I was on Bullseye, this was a pain in the ass and a half, because like I was trying to install Steam, I was getting a lot of errors because some of the 32-bit packages that I needed were already up to the most. They weren't able to work with the current version of Debian that I was using, because it was like the most up to date within the repositories. So you would have to build the packages yourself. So I started to have some headaches dealing with that. The whole Steam install process, which shouldn't have been that big of an issue, but it ended up being an issue. So I was like, fuck it, we're going to use Flatpak. I'm currently not using Flatpak for Steam, though I am using Flatpak for Discord, because Discord straight up won't install on Debian unless you do some configuration, because this little applet up here in the top corner, I think that's what it is. There's a package, it's like lib app notify or something like that, and that just won't work with Debian as far as I'm aware. So I was just like, fuck it, dude, we're just gonna use Flatpak. I don't like the idea of using um, you know, multiple package managers, but I mean, I guess it is what it is. It's one program, so it's not that big of a deal. I could always use the browser version, but that's that. after I did update to Bullseye, I ended up having more luck installing Steam. It went perfectly like the first time I went through it. So I'm like, cool, I don't have to deal with that shit anymore. So the two major headaches are done. Installing Steam, getting the browser working. That's like the main things I've been dealing with. Also, um, the last headache that I had initially setting things up was mounting my hard drives because I have two internal uh, 8 terabyte hard drives within my computer. Well, actually, there's three hard drives. Technically two, but I have one SSD and then the two 8 terabytes, which I shucked. And those were not mounting by default. I would end up having to like go over here on like the sidebar and then click it, enter my root password, and then they would mount, which was not gonna fly because I have qBittorrent, and I usually run that at start. So I would have to uh, first go like mount the hard drives through my file manager, enter my root password for both of them, and then go over to qBittorrent and hope everything works. I ended up getting around this issue by doing a little bit of research. You can use, if you want to use GUI, you can use GNOME disks. You could just install that program. Otherwise, you just edit your fstab table. I went through and I initially tried to mess around with fstab. I wasn't really having any luck. I think I was missing a few arguments, but then I went through GNOME disks, and I ended up getting things working that way. So then after that was done, like the majority of the shit was done. It was good. We're good. Um, we're rolling now. Things are looking good over here in comfy Debian town, because once you get your shit working, uh, with like Debian in particular, you're likely not going to have to deal with it because it prides itself on stability. So once you got shit working, they're not going to try to change things on you, and things will usually just work. One of the things that surprised me though was my Xbox 360 controller over here. When I was testing things out, like I launched Steam, I installed Hollow Knight, and the Xbox 360 controller worked out of the box, which that never worked over here on Ubuntu. And I never tried once things updated more, but that surprised me pleasantly, and I was happy with that. Though, like, as it stands currently, with my system, getting things in a comfy place, getting things set up, um, I'm using. Actually, I should talk about my setup a little bit. Like I said, mentioned, I'm using Debian Bullseye, which is Debian 11. Uh, you know, um, my desktop environment is Mate. I prefer desktop environments. I like clicky. I like to clicky with my mouse. I don't have anything against people who use window managers. I've messed around with window managers before, um, but personally, like I feel most comfortable with GUI stuff. Though, like if need be, I know how to edit things through CLI only. There's actually a book I had around here. I I purchased like the Linux command line book. Uh, it was some I have it somewhere, or it used to be on my desk, but now it isn't. So I know a lot of things regarding Linux. I'm no expert. I'm not gonna pretend like I know a lot and I'm a wizard here, but like I know my fair share of Linux shit because I've been using it since like 2014 or 2015. So I have a couple years of experience under my belt. Um, so actually, why? Oh, never mind. I was looking at something, but I'm using Mate. It's my preferred desktop environment. Uh, if you ask me, XFCE it's good, but it's kind of overrated. And me being a hipster, I can't use it. So I use Mate. Mate is a fork of GNOME 3, and they've continued to do like development on it. It's kind of like XFCE in a sense, not the same level of customization, but you got some interesting things there. I just find it comfy because it's the one I've been using on this laptop for years. So when it came time to choose a desktop environment, it was the no-brainer for me because I've been using it for a long time. I'm not going to use GNOME because GNOME. Actually, here's the thing, dude. GNOME is really comfy. Like I used Ubuntu GNOME for a long time, and by a long time, I mean it was during my distro hopping time, so I was on it for a couple months. But I found it to be like while it was extremely bloated, there's something about the whole experience of using GNOME that it was somewhat intuitive, and it had some nice shortcuts and stuff, but overall it was bloated. It would slow down your system needlessly, and like it was basically built for uh, touch controls from what it seems, which like I don't know who is using touch controls on Linux. Surely the demographic of that can't be that large, but I'm sure there are people out there. And also the problem with GNOME is that you have to do a lot of configuring out of the box if you want it to actually uh, do things that you want it to. Like from at least from for me, I had to do a lot of configuring. KDE, it's it's kind of cool, but it's also overrated. I've seen some interesting customizations with it, but personally, I think it looks a bit too Windowsy and a bit too modern for my tastes. Much prefer the old if it looks older, if it looks like classic Unix, or it looks like right now I'm using the Chicago 95, which is the Windows 95 theme. Like if it looks older, it's better, in my opinion. I don't like the whole flashiness. I don't like glossy. I don't like blurry, excuse me, type of thing. So like, and that's kind of what KDE is good because it can convince people to move over from Windows if they're more interested in aesthetic, because it doesn't matter like how good. I mean, I'm talking subjectively here. Windows 11 will look. KDE will look better, and you will have more customization options, and that goes for pretty much any other desktop environment. But KDE is there for, I guess, more of a casual type of person, I guess. And I'm not saying people who use KDE are casuals. It's just kind of how I see it. It has more appeal for people who prefer a much more modern design sense, I guess. And I'm like, I guess I respect that. And then window managers are pretty cool. They're pretty comfy. I've messed around with i3 a lot. For a while, I was running Arch and i3 on my ThinkPad, and like I was able to get the hang of it, and I saw why people liked it. But a lot of things that I would do, like I started to reach a point where I was like, yeah, this is cool, but um, it like I want to come back. I want to come back to the GUI. I want to come back to the GUI. My smooth brain wants the GUI. So we ended up back on the GUI. Though I do really like keyboard shortcuts. That's something that I will miss. Like how like once things click when you're using a window manager, it will become like an extension of your brain, um, and you will just like fly through shit really cool and based. So that's kind of the thing. Talk a little bit about programs, because obviously, like jumping from Windows to Linux, you're gonna have to make some. You're gonna have to count your losses, I guess. Sometimes, though sometimes the alternatives are better, but in other cases, not necessarily. So, one of the biggest things for me, well, the two biggest are my music player and my video player. I'm gonna close NeoFetch here. Um, so I got my browser and shit. That's the same. Firefox is all across the board. Still using it. Um, I'm using MPV. I have used MPV for a long time. It's what's been on here. I've been using it since I got this computer because fuck VLC. Uh, no, VLC is good for playing DVDs and basically nothing else, in my opinion. So I've been using MPV. Keyboard shortcuts are based as fuck. Um, Once you get your config file working, it's all good. You just have to be brave and want to mess around with having either no GUI or uh, like very minimal, because you still got this stuff. But like, who even uses this? Like, who clicks this play button right here? Um, but I think a lot of the keybinds are very intuitive. as well. And then MPV is really good because you can watch, you could use YouTube DL and watch with MPV, which is really cool because like you don't have to mess around with going through YouTube sometimes. But that's where I've been going. When I was on Windows, I was an MPC-HC user with combining that with MadVR, what was previously called KCP or Kawaii Codec Pack. I made a slightly modified version, or like I was essentially using the same components of KCP, and like updating each individual component, and then I made it like an otaku codec pack, which is just my rebranding of it. It's using the fan build of MPCHD because official support of the program ended, so now it's being supported by fans. So you have to download a build off GitHub. And then I was using the most up-to-date lab filters, as well as the most up-to-date, or at least at the time I put it together, the most up-to-date version of MadVR. Because KCP stopped being updated a long time ago, so you're using like an old version of the program. And one of the things, the biggest problem I had with Windows when I first got onto it, and why I wasn't continuing to use KCP, is because the version of MadVR they were using didn't scale they didn't scale subtitles independently from the video. So what would happen? Like, let me see if I could find a part with subtitles here. All right, here. So most videos are these days are anime fan subs that you download are going to be in the MKV format, which is technically a container. So there's a video stream, an audio stream, and a subtitle stream. They're each independent, and it's going to render each one or process each one, whatever, independently. So when you full screen it, the subtitles will scale independently from the video, as opposed to being hard subbed. And for some reason, the KCP, when I updated it, and I never noticed it because I was using it on my ThinkPad for the longest time. So when I would full screen it, it wasn't really noticeable because the screen on the ThinkPad is like essentially 720p, and it's not that good. But what would happen was, like if I was on the original KCP on Windows, unmodified by me, I would go full screen and the subtitles would like scale the same, like at the same rate as the video would. So what ended up happening is it would be really blurry, and it would bother me a lot because if I was watching an older series, for example, like I was watching Tetsuko no Tabi, which I don't think is even 480p. So when I would full screen it, the soft subs, which should theoretically render independently from the video, were scaling at the same rate as the video. So they were really blurry because it was going from like this to this without like rendering properly, and it bothered me so much that I spent like it was an unnecessarily long stretch of time trying to figure out what was wrong in MadVR, and then I spent a lot of time putting together the programs and making the shit work, and then it finally worked. And by that time, I could have just used MPV, because MPV will work out of the box no matter what. You could drop a little config file in there if you want, but like out of the box, it's basically gonna be good for most people's usage cases if you don't really care about like getting the most quality as possible. Which I mean, it's essentially diminishing returns for most people, the untrained eye, but whatever. That was a weird ramble, but essentially, I'm using MPV now. That's the point. That's the point. We're using MPV. It's really comfy, and I'm used to it. All the keybinds are very intuitive. Like to take a screenshot, you click S. To hide the subtitles, you click V. To cycle through the subtitles, you click J. And O is to bring the on-screen thing right here. I is information. Q is quit. F is full screen. And there's a few other ones, like to step through frames you use is the like to go back is the comma, and to go forward is the period. There's a few other ones, like the number keys do certain things to do with like gamma and brightness, volume, and the volume is 0 and 9 or something like that if I remember correctly. Don't quote me though. Pause is right here. to switch between chapters, like to go to chapter up, you click page up, and the previous chapter you click page down, and then obviously use the arrow keys to move around, like 10-second steps forward, backwards, stuff like that. I mean it's very intuitive once you get the hang of it. It seems really intimidating because there's no buttons, but most of the time in NPC or yeah NPCHC, like I would just be using the buttons anyways. You would only use the GUI to go navigate through menus, but once you figure out how to use config files, like it's way easier just to go through set things up in a config file and just have things work than to go through like 30 menus and try to figure out where one setting is. Whereas if you're in the file, you can just type in exactly what you want, set the save path for like the default save path for screenshots, for example, and set the default format like PNG or JPEG or whatever, and whatnot. And you could also edit the keybinds if you want as well. But that's using MPV. MPV is really based. The only reason I didn't use it on Windows is because I was so accustomed to using MPCHC and my KCP/Otaku codec pack. Because the entirety of uni, I used my ThinkPad, and almost the entire 4 years it was running Windows, because a lot of the programs I needed to use for uni were Windows, unfortunately. But I just used that, and I watched like hundreds of anime on it, and I got so used to it, using it so much, like every day, that it was hard to break the habit. Even though like when I would come home for winter break and I would use like this computer right here, I would just be like, well, time to watch some anime. Let's see right here. We're gonna watch Battle Programmer Shirase. This is a pretty based anime. It will use MPV if it loads. It's actually really slow because I'm still using a fucking mechanical hard drive. So we're using MPV over here as well. So like I've been using it for a long time, arguably longer than MPCHC, but I've seen more anime with the KCP/MPCHC setup. So anyways, that's some autistic rambling about that. This is the kind of shit, dude. Like, this is the kind of autism levels that we will reach here when it comes to talking about our programs. And this is going to be unnecessarily long, by the way. It's almost been 30 minutes, and I haven't even talked about my music program and some other things. But yeah, so that's MPV. I get really particular about it, but once I get things set up, it will be good. It will be good. Hopefully, crossing my fingers. Music player. On Windows, I used Music B. A lot of people like Foobar. I like Music B because I like to have all the albums laid out. I'm pretty sure you can do that in Foobar, but I just liked using Music B, and I used it a while. I got used to it. I'm currently using Strawberry on Linux, which is basically a Clementine except not shit. Clementine is okay. I have it over here, but it's kind of, not really kind of, it's extremely bloated. Like, it has a bunch of crap. I'm gonna open it up here so I can show you, as opposed to what Strawberry over here has. And also, strawberries are better than oranges. But over here, we just have the bare minimum things. We just have like the basic shit, like the basic controls. You got like it. All it does is play local files for the most part. You get a little fancy over here with some other things, like with streaming. I don't mess with streaming. I don't stream music, but like I do like to have this Last FM scrobbler. There's that. Yeah, you could check out my Last FM if you care for it, and you can see how shit my music taste is, or how good it is, depending on your preferences. But over here, Clementine, once it loads, you got a lot of crap over here. Like, I think you could use a Wiimote with it, which is kind of cool, but I'll never use that. That's just gonna end up being unnecessary things. And the problem right here is a lot of internet crap that I will never use. So it's just kind of ended up like a dead weight on the program. And also, Clementine, when I was using it over here and I initially set things up while I was testing different music players, it was giving me issues with like not saving certain configurations I made to the program while it was running, and it would reset every time I reopened it. But I kind of used it for a couple days while I figured things out because um, at the time Strawberry was not using the media keys on my keyboard, which I have set up here, like function arrow over here is the next song, function down is play pause, whatever. It wasn't registering my default keybinds for whatever reason, so I was like, screw it, I'll use Clementine. I used Clementine for a bit, but it wasn't saving my configs, so I'm like, fuck Clementine. I'll go back to Strawberry, even if it's not going to use my media keys. However, after doing a little bit of research, someone on GitHub also had a similar issue with the Mate desktop environment, which is interesting because not too many people use Mate as far as I'm aware. But they also are having the issue, so they added where is it? Over here, global shortcuts. They have it in here. Use Mate shortcuts when available. I have it unchecked right now because now it works perfectly fine after I updated to Bullseye. But back when I was on Buster, I had to keep that clicked because for some reason the X11 shortcuts weren't working. So I downloaded a custom build off, well, not really custom, but like a pre-release one. Um, and with the Mate shortcuts when available, and it worked. So I'm like, cool, this is exactly what I need, and it was working. Clementine slash Strawberry is more of a playlist centric music player as opposed to Music B, which for me was more of an album based music player where I would like scroll through, find the album I wanted to, and just like listen to it, and that would be in my queue. So I would like scroll through, listen through a lot of albums. What I do on Strawberry though is I've been incentivized to make playlists. So right here, this is my trance playlist. It's not completed and it's like it's lazily sorted, but I just have my trance stuff. So I got like every Little Things trance album on there, which is fucking good. By the way, people who like Gore Trance 1 uses samples from this album in particular. Notably, Someday Someplace. The Cybertrance presents what was the full name? Cybertrance. Oh, that's not the full name. But it's Every Little Things Cybertrance remix album. Somewhere, someplace, someday, someplace is on Gore Trance 1. That's how I found this album. Then I also got some Hamasaki Ayumi on here. I got her Cybertrance album, which is good. I got a few over here. And then just like a fuck ton. I got all the Exit Trance presents. What is it? Speed, Anime, Toransu, like all the bests on there. So that's that. A fuck ton of Exit Trance there. So that's like my trance one. So I'm just like, well, I gotta find it. I put it in here because otherwise, I have a fuck ton of music on here that I gotta sort through. Let's look here. A lot of shit. So usually that would just be albums, and I would like it would be easy to sort through on Music Bee because I could just start typing the name of the album, and like it will like sort itself and get to the album I want. And over here I'm being incentivized more to make playlists, which is a good thing because I've always wanted to make more playlists. Because sometimes I'll just like switch through albums and I don't know what to listen to, and I want more of a mood. I have right here like this is Saturday night playlist. That's for tomorrow. But like I was listening to trance because I wanted some trance music, and I have over here my shoegaze one that's still relatively well, shoegaze because Tricot on there. Tricot isn't shoegaze. I don't. No, they're not shoegaze. They're more math rock, but it's more like alternative rock kind of Japanese stuff on there. So we got like some stuff here, and we also got like some pop. But yeah, I don't want to talk too much about music today, at least. So I've been using Strawberry. Strawberry is really good. If you use Clementine, you should be using Strawberry, unless you use the online services. In which case, screw you. Not really though. Not really. That's fine. So let me take a sip of water here. So at the current moment, I have an almost perfect setup for Debian. I have some minor issues, like still working on getting my mouse keybinds working. I've been messing around with X. What is it called? X keybinds or something. It's something like that. And I messed around with the config file. I wasn't really having, like, I set it up and I think I got it right. But it's not working at the current moment, so I probably have to tinker with things a little bit. Maybe I have to go back into the file and edit it, but it's whatever. But like as it currently stands, like I said, I think I said it before, but essentially, most people, their usage of their computer doesn't really escape the web browser. Those four window corners, right, edges right there, they don't really go outside of that, and that's for me too. I mostly am using Firefox, using some sort of text editor to keep like a to-do list in my anime queue and whatever. Got a music player over there. Got a file manager just here. And by the way, the fact that Windows hasn't added tabs into their file managers or file explorers for like after this long, it's like pathetic. Because I would have like 50 file explorers open, and you know it's terrible when fire file explorer like just crashes. That's when it's bad, and that's when you know Windows has gone too far and we need to kill it. But like it just works. I got some tabs there, so I only have one file manager open. That's cool. And then I also have just Firefox just running. You can do whatever theme you want. There's a lot of customization options. I switched between this 95 one and a Windows XP one. And then off over here, you got to get your Qubit torrent. Over here, I got Discord open, so I'm not going to show that. But, you get Qubit torrent over here. I managed to export things from Windows, and it almost copied over perfectly here. But I had to mass edit a lot of things because the names of the hard drives changed in between the move. But I got pretty much everything working. Everything sorted. It was easier to fix than I thought it would be. I thought it was going to be a huge headache, but it wasn't. But yeah, we're over here. We're on Debian 11 at the current moment, and we're starting to get comfy. It's a work in progress, I guess. It will be a consistent work in progress. There's always going to be those things that I want to tinker with, because that's the kind of autism I got. I'm not sure how long I'll stay on Debian, but I'm not at the amount of legwork I've put in within the past week and a half or so, like getting shit set up, and I've got it basically to the point I want it. I really don't have much of an incentive to jump ship somewhere else. That's for like my laptops. I mess around with different distros there and see what happens. I could try a spicier distro over there. I could mess around. I want to mess around with Gentoo actually. I want to take the plunge and actually install Gentoo somewhere. But currently on my ThinkPad, I'm messing around with Void Linux because it's a really neat non-systemd, very derivative distro that's not really built off anything. It's doing its own thing. So it's pretty cool, and it's very lightweight. And like I said, no systemd. So I'm messing around with that. Not sure how long I'm going to stay with Ubuntu over here. I might switch over here. But I'm using Debian over here. It's pretty stable. Like obviously the biggest complaint about Debian is that the packages are outdated. Sometimes I have already experienced that like I want to install something, and the dependencies are met because there's a package that's not being updated. Where like let's say, for example, with Discord, I was trying to download it just through app the default Debian package manager, and it wasn't able to install because there was one package that would not. It would like refuse to download, and it mentioned it there. It was like this package will not be installed, and it cannot be installed. So it was just like it just tells you you're basically fucked with this one, unless of course you build it from source and you set some flags or whatever to not require that. But then you wouldn't have like certain features like the little applet or whatever. But obviously, I'm not obviously, but like I'm not smart enough. I might be smart enough. I've built software from source before, but I'm too lazy to do that. So I just went flat pack. So there are some things that I have to just kind of bite the bullet on like that, um, and like deal with some of the quirkiness that Debian has, for better or for worse. Though hopefully it's for the better, because once you got things set up, then you'll be um, very stable. Though I know that's basically within the Linux world that's synonymous with outdated. Though honestly, I'm not really too keen on having things be the most up to date in terms of my software. Like as things stands, it's fine. If anything, when things update needlessly, I will get kind of frustrated by that when they change things on me, because then I'll be really irritated, and then I have to spend a lot of time reconfiguring things that I would rather not be doing, and I would rather actually be working on the thing that I want to, or just turn on my computer, watch YouTube, watch anime, listen to some music, and not have to deal with things breaking, UIs changing, um, that kind of things, because that would trigger my autism or my OCD or whatever, and then I'll like just spend the entire uh, morning or whatever just fixing shit to way back to get things back to the way they were, which I already have to deal with Firefox. I don't want to do that anymore. Um, that's just me being lazy too. Though, like if you enjoy that part of it, your computing experience, and more power to you. But that's something that I used to mess with. I'm not really too into that anymore. But it's kind of whatever. I've been having a reasonable time on Debian. I've had my fair share of headaches, like I've mentioned before. Um, but I'm generally enjoying the whole GNU plus Linux experience. Um, yeah, I'm enjoying that. Um, Basically, I have no reason to use Windows right now, um, except to use Premiere. So maybe play an odd game or whatever. But like if I really want to play a game, most of the time I'm over here reaching for my 3DS, or my Switch is right there, currently plugged into the monitor. So um, that's that. That was a really, really long-winded ramble about, I guess, my first week of using Debian on this, um, my main PC. It's been quite the experience, and now that I've gotten over the whole like getting my feet wet and like jumping off the deep end, I guess, finally, like the whole like initial stages of setting up your distro for the first time, or just like with any computer, is going to be a headache. Recently, not recently, a couple months ago, when I first started the fall semester, my fall semester in 2020, I had to reinstall Windows because I had some bullshit that was happening with my PSU, um, and like I kind of fucked up on something, and I had to reinstall Windows, and that was a nightmare and a half, because whereas like with Linux, you can actually like see visible progress with like making strides in customizing your operating system, like when you're first getting things set up. With Windows, you have to like decrapify it, like debloat it, get rid of the bullshit, and then you can start um, config configurating things. Because like when I reinstalled Windows, you gotta run like a debloat script and get rid of all the crap, and then you gotta fix the start menu, like get all the advertisements out of the start menu, and then turn off Cortana, even though Cortana will still continue listening to you. You gotta go into your settings and make sure it's like like a whole bunch of shit. Like I don't want local computers to download Windows updates for me, like all that crap. You don't have to deal with that initial step. That's like step zero, which is the biggest step on Windows that you have to deal with. But once you get over that, then you gotta like actually customized OS. Whereas when you install Linux, you just hit the ground running and you just customize things. You might have to jump through a few more hoops. There are different types of headaches you will encounter, but overall, like it's very satisfying, because once you learn how to do something, then it's really easy to do it again, and it just becomes a muscle memory at that point. Um, so that's kind of the thing. We're finally using Linux. I'm gonna end the video because I'm tired of talking. I should have eaten dinner like an hour ago, but I haven't. Um, and I need to get back to watching this Hazel video about serial experiments lanes. Serial experiment lane. Serial experiments lane. Serial experiments lanes. Plural. PSX game. That sounded really weird because serial experiments lanes, because it sounds like experiments is plural, but it's not actually plural, even though it might actually be. I'm retarded. I don't know grammar. I didn't go to school to study grammar. But yeah, got to get back to this. Then after that, continue watching Steel Angel Kurumi. And yeah, I guess like anyone who listened this far, cool, good job. You're a really cool person. You listened to a long, disjointed, kind of autistic ramble about using Linux. That's about it.